Okay, so today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free and spoiler review of this book, Nevermoor, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is a middle grade fantasy book and I just found it to be so beautiful and so incredibly intriguing and enticing along the way. I gave it 5 stars. It was just amazing. So to start off the spoiler-free section, we're going to jump in and take a look at the spoiler-free version of the premise. So the premise of Nevermoor, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend is that we are following a girl by the name of Morrigan who has been born on a very special day in the world where she lives in, called Eventide. Unfortunately, what this does mean for any child that's born on Eventide is that they are going to die 12 years after they're born. So the town kind of views it as a curse, if you will. Morrigan, her family also treat her incredibly horribly. At the stroke of midnight, so to say, enter in a man by the name of Jupiter, who, if you've read Harry Potter at all and you love the whimsical aspects of Albus Dumbledore, you are going to love this guy. He just waltzes in without a care in the world and basically ends up taking Morrigan away with him. Now, there is more that happens prior to that point, but this is what you need to know for the moment. He whisks her away to Nevermoor. Jupiter has taken Morrigan not only away from her hometown area, but he asked her a question, and that important question was, well, do you want to die? And Morrigan says no, and Jupiter then says, well, then why should you? Then live. Let's go. So they go over to Nevermoor, but unfortunately Jupiter hoodwinks some guards to let her in, and we very quickly find out that he has let her into Nevermoor illegally. So we then get to a point where Morrigan is introduced to the Wanderer Society, and the Wanderer Society can protect her because for lack of a better term, the law enforcement of Nevermoor. The law enforcement of Nevermoor are able to have control over the entire area. However, they do not have any control at all over the Wanderer Society. Now enter in another issue, which is the Wanderer Society will protect Morrigan, provided that she goes through a number of trials and actually becomes a member of this very highly ranked, very coveted society. And there is no guarantee that she is going to get in. So what we learn very early on in the book is that Morrigan needs to go through, I believe it's either 3 or 4 trials, something like that. I think it's actually 4 trials, and each trial stage has an elimination process. So, and they cut a lot of people as they go throughout the trials. And if Morrigan does survive, there's only a certain amount of, a very low amount of members that they can accept this year. So if Morrigan does make it into the society, then she'll be protected forevermore. But if she doesn't, then she is going to need to be removed from Nevermoor and go back to where she was living. There is a whole lot more to the book than this, but it is filled with such whimsy and wonder, and it is absolutely beautiful. If you have not picked up this book, I highly recommend it because despite the fact that this is a middle grade book, what I love about Jessica Townsend is she has taken on a middle grade book that to me has absolutely proven that middle grade can stand on its own 2 feet. There is a lot of discussion out there on BookTube between certain booktubers who are saying that, you know, middle grade is something you kind of turn your nose up at, you know. But I completely disagree. I've come across some amazing middle grade books, and this is definitely one of them, so I do highly recommend it. For the next portion of the spoiler-free section of this review, I'm going to discuss with you a couple of pros and a couple of cons, so that will hopefully help you to determine if this is the right book for you. Let's jump into that right now. I'm going to start off with the cons. My first con with Nevermoor is that we have a mystery that kind of comes up in the book at some point. While this book is not categorized with the genre of mystery, there is a mystery within the book. And for me, I very much figured the mystery out very early on, and I was right. Sometimes when I'm right, when it comes to any kind of a mystery element in any type of a book, I'm really happy. But with this one, I felt that it was a con for me, and it was a big letdown because all of the characters are having a very big reaction to it, where here I am thinking, how did you not know? My first pro for this book has to be the character of Jupiter. Coming off of an absolute love, if not bordering on obsession, with the Harry Potter series, one of my favourite characters in Harry Potter was Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Now, if you have not read Harry Potter, that is absolutely fine. You don't need to for what I'm about to say. All you need to know is that Albus Dumbledore is an older man, an older wizard for that world, and he is very whimsical and wondrous, and almost, in a way, when he's happy, he can be very childlike and also at the same time rather nonchalant and non-caring about what other people think about him, because he is just who he is, and that makes him such a fun and lovable character to follow. Jupiter is exactly the same. When he walks into Morrigan's home, his family are having all these reactions, you know, the indecency of you walking into our home and demanding that you're going to take our daughter away, and he's just like, yes, well, you know, I'm here. so you know, what do you think you're going to do about this? Anyway, Morrigan, would you like to come? You know, we are running a bit behind. I loved this because as much as I loved it with Albus Dumbledore, we don't really get to see a lot of the wonder and the whimsy, I guess, of Albus Dumbledore throughout the series, but with Jupiter it is very much highlighted. My second con for Nevermoor, spoiler-free con, is that some, not all of them, but some of the trials didn't live up to the hype that's kind of created around them. Yeah, I can't really say much about them in detail because obviously anything I say about the trials themselves is going to be a spoiler, but I'm just looking at the way that I felt about it. My second spoiler-free pro for this book, I have to go with another character, and that character is the character of Fenestra. Now, Fenestra is what they call in the world of Nevermoor a Magnificat. I have to make sure I get the wording right there. A Magnificat. Now, a Magnificat is a humongous cat that is so huge, and I loved this character. Fenestra is exactly what you would imagine a cat would be. Now, of course, one spoiler I can give you is that Fenestra can talk. So it's not a silent cat, it is a cat that has the ability to speak. But the way that it speaks, the way that it acts is exactly how you would expect a cat to act. And despite the fact that it's a humongous cat, I just really, really appreciated it. And the back and forth banter, while also having those separate moments between Jupiter and the Magnificat of Fenestra, the balance was just so perfectly executed between this wonder and whimsy of Jupiter versus the hissy kind of hissy-fitting cat, Wonder Cat, Magnificat of Fenestra. My third and final spoiler-free con, again, I'm being very nitpicky when I say this, again, it's a 5-star book for me, but if I had to go there, would have to be the plot conveniences. Now, the term plot convenience is very much synonymous with the term middle grade. Now, for those of you who don't know what a plot convenience is, it is exactly what it sounds like. A convenient thing that is going to prop up during some point in the book and to assist our characters. And I can give you an example that's not from this book. Let's imagine that we have a helpless girl who is locked in a tower, and then there is no way out of that tower. Then suddenly she looks down and she sees a key, and conveniently that key fits in the lock. She puts in the lock, turns the key, and exits the tower. She exited the tower without having to do much other than to look down on the ground. There was the key. It was so conveniently placed. I didn't feel that there were a ton of plot conveniences, so I can't say that that is the case, but there are plot conveniences that are there. And my final spoiler-free pro for Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend would have to be the plot itself, as well as if I might say, because it is a fantasy, the world building. It's both of them. The plot of Nevermoor is so intriguing and so engaging. I think the writing style is wonderful too. It's very beautifully written, but the plot is just extremely engaging in and of itself. From the moment, for me, I didn't necessarily like the prologue or chapter 1, but from chapter 2 onwards, which is when we're making our way to get to Nevermoor, everything was just so extremely exciting. And the way that every single chapter ended, it was almost in a way like it ended on a cliffhanger. Or if it didn't end on a cliffhanger, it ended in a way that you wanted to know what was coming up next, because there was something exciting that was right around the corner that you knew was coming up. And I just wanted to jump in the book and live here happily ever after. So it was just absolutely incredible. That is where I'm going to leave for the spoiler-free section. But again, I gave it 5 stars. I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. If you're all about the whimsy and the wonder of a fantasy, you will love this book. And the writing is not too technical. It's not flowery in the way that it's hard to read. It's incredibly easy to read. The characters are so engaging. The story is just so amazingly executed that I really don't feel that you'll be let down reading this book. Again, for me, personal preference, I do recommend making your way, trudging through the prologue and chapter 1, because for me, the prologue and chapter 1 were kind of hard for me to find some kind of a hook to hang my hat on. But once I got to chapter 2, oh my gosh, I didn't want to put the book down. There were times where I was forced to put it down, but I didn't want to. So I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. If you have read it, or if you do end up going to read it based on my recommendation, please do comment in the space below and let me know what you thought of it, because I could talk about this book for ages. It was just so good. But right now we're going to jump into the spoiler section for Nevermoor. Okay, so this is the spoiler section for Nevermoor. You have been warned. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Here we go. The mystery of where the heck the Wondersmith is. And I felt very early on that the Wondersmith was one of 3 people. I felt that the Wondersmith was either Jack, Jupiter, or the Mist, or whatever the heck his name was, the guy that it ended up being. By the time I got to halfway through the book, I dropped the fact that it was Jack, because I could tell that it wasn't him, and I was going between Jupiter and this Mr. whatever his name is guy. And then 3/4 of the way through the book, I thought, no, there's just too many things going on with Jupiter that are leading me to believe that it's not him. If it ends up being him, I'm going to feel completely betrayed, because Jupiter has put so much on the line for himself with Morrigan. So I just felt that it wouldn't flow right. It'd be too much of a jerky, jaw-dropping reveal, but it would also feel more like a betrayal, especially for a middle grade, but it would feel too much like a betrayal for the reader. So by the 3/4 mark, I firmly had cemented myself with the idea that this Mr. whatever his name is was the wonder person, whatever his name is that I just said. These terms, I need to learn these terms so I can say them. But the Wonder person. And yeah, it ended up being him. So when that was revealed, when the Aria lady, the Aria singer, showed Morrigan and her friend, and I've forgotten his name too, the photo, the picture of this Mr. guy, and Morrigan's really shocked, and then we have this whole thing of, oh my god, it's him, and I've been seeing him, and it's like, yeah, I kind of figured this out. And Morrigan to me is so incredibly what I would call street smart, so it really did surprise me that she didn't work this out a lot sooner. Let's just jump into Jupiter. Oh my gosh, this guy, if not for Jupiter and Fenestra, I don't think I would love this book as much as I did. The plot itself was amazing. I'm not saying that it wasn't. The writing style was incredibly easy to read, which absolutely helps me, because the more flowery it is, the more the writing style is in any book, the more I'm turned off by it. But the characters and their dynamics between Jupiter and Fenestra really make this book shine, as far as I'm concerned. The cattiness, which, I mean, is just the perfect word, the cattiness of the Magnificat Fenestra was just so hilarious. I love her. I think it's a her. Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, the cat's sarcasm and all that and cattiness, I just love that. But then on the other side of things, we have Jupiter, who is just so whimsical, and it just reminded me of, for those of you who have read Harry Potter, if you haven't, don't worry, this is not a massive scene, with the mirror of Erised, how Dumbledore says, I see myself holding a lovely woolen pair of socks, and he's just so whimsical in that way. Jupiter just encapsulates the essence of the whimsy that Dumbledore is, and I don't feel that Townsend copied J.K. Rowling, no, because she made Jupiter his own person, but the whimsy that Dumbledore had really was just, it's so enticing, and it just captured my attention, and I fell in love with Dumbledore so quickly, and I've fallen in love with Jupiter to the same extent. And then to have those scenes with Jupiter and Finestra bouncing off each other was just so good to see. But yeah, I love all the characters. I think obviously it took a while for me to warm up to Jack, because Jack just treated Morrigan rather horribly to begin with. I still don't think we know why he was wearing the patch over his eye, because we got to that point where, and if it is in the book, please tell me, because I must have missed it. The whole Christmas thing where some people were supporting Santa, or whatever he's called in this book, and others are supporting the Snow Queen, and that whole battle that plays out between the two of them to see, you know, who can put on the better show, and then they both come to like an agreement that they're both as good, and everyone gets presents and snow and everything. Oh, that was just so beautiful, and that again comes back to the whimsy and the wonder of Nevermoor. The book is just written so well, and I think a lot of authors can take a leaf out of Jessica Townsend's writing style, because Jessica Townsend writes with a writing style that is so simplistic to read, and yet she's still able to write in a way where you can see everything in your mind that is playing out. Where if you look at, say, someone like an author that I don't like, which is a very unpopular opinion, J.R.R. Tolkien, who is just so incredibly descriptive that it just bores me to tears. Jessica Townsend is not. She finds a way to be descriptive enough for you to capture the essence of what is actually going on and be able to see everything in your mind's eye. And yet at the same time, she's not overly descriptive, because she doesn't need to be. We get to the end and we get that reveal with the Wonder Snuff, the bad guy. And he is finally revealing to Morrigan what she is, because we've been waiting all this time. Jupiter's not telling her. He said he'll tell her as soon as he gets back to the hotel, and then she's kidnapped, despite the fact that he says he didn't kidnap her, but anyway. And he then tells her that she is like he is. She's a wonder. There's so many wonder words in this book, but she's a wonder whatever it is. I did appreciate that. I thought he was going to say that he was her father for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, I appreciated that reveal very much. I also appreciated that he wasn't trying to kill her. He was just trying to give her a lesson, and then he left so she could go home. I did appreciate that. And then she got the pin, and everyone was just really, really happy, and she gets to stay in Nevermoor. I really appreciated that too, because, you know, we got to that point where she said she wants to go home, and I was like, no, you can't go home, you have to stay in this world is amazing. So the fact that she did get to, you know, it did come to the conclusion that she did want to remain in Nevermoor was just really amazing. And the fact that she's in this society is just wonderful. I am definitely going to be reading book number 2 next month, and I can't wait. I wish I could read it now, but I still have books to get through. But all in all, this book was absolutely amazing, and I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. I can't get enough. I wish I could just keep going. But I'll be able to keep going on with book 2 soon enough. In the meantime, comment below and let me know if you've read this and what you thought of it. But that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you so much for watching. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah. In the meantime, happy reading!